In this video, I will go over a quiz that I just gave my high school geometry class on basic reflections and rotations. But before we even get started, you have to memorize these rules and these rules, okay? The basic rules of reflection and the basic rules of rotation. So if you have not memorized these, then you need to pause the video and copy these down and study them and memorize them. And same with these. So I'm going to assume for the rest of the video that you have done that, and it's up to you to make sure that that is actually true. All right, so on with the quiz. Problem number 1. Which of these rules would translate a figure left 6 and up 4? Well, left 6 is -6, and up 4 is, left 6 is x minus 6, and up 4 is y plus 4. So let's see. So that is going to be D. All right, problem number 2. The point M, which is -7, -2, is reflected across a line to become M prime, -7, +2. All right, well, let's see what happened by using a generic point x comma y and see what happened as it became the image. So let's see. We have -7 was the x value, and then we have -7 still. So that tells me that the x value did not move or change. So that means in the image, it's still going to be the x value. That just leaves the y value, so which is -2, and then it became a +2. Notice that is the opposite. So I'm going to put the opposite of y. And then, so we have x opposite of y. So remember, we memorized these rules. X opposite of y is a reflection over the x-axis. So that's why the answer is A. Okay, let's do that again for problem number 3. All right, so the x value is -4, and I see that's going to become a +4, and notice that it moves, instead of being first, it is second. So I can write that down right now. All right, so the x value is ending up here, and it is the opposite of what it was. -4 became +4, and so I put the opposite of x with this little minus sign, means opposite. And then the y value was 6, and then I see a 6 here. So the y value stays the same, but it just moves from the second position to the first position. So that'll just be a y value right there. So y opposite of x, we've memorized the rules, and we know that, hold on, I'm trying to scroll, y opposite of x is a 90-degree clockwise rotation around the origin. Oh, okay, they didn't really ask us that. They just asked us for the rule. So they're just asking us for this. So the answer is C. But notice that this is, in fact, a 90-degree clockwise rotation. All right, even though they didn't ask us for that. Okay, now let's look at problem number 4. Okay, well, this is just straightforward memorization. We have opposite of x, opposite of y. We've memorized this chart, and we see opposite of x, opposite of y right here. That is a 180-degree rotation around the origin. So that is B. Okay, number 5. Draw the image of segment PQ after it is reflected across the x-axis. So we know that this is the x-axis right here. I'm just going to highlight it a little bit. Okay, this is the x-axis. So the easiest thing to do is just to use your common sense and just do the mirror image on the other side of this line. So P is 1 above the line, so P prime is going to be 1 unit below the line. And don't forget to label it. Point Q is 4 units above the line, so I'm going to go 4 units below the line. And that'll be Q prime. And that's it. We have reflected the segment across the x-axis. Okay, problem number 6. Draw the image of segment PQ after it is rotated 90 degrees clockwise around the origin. So for this, I suggest using the rule that every point xy is going to become the point y opposite of x. And again, this is why we had to memorize these rules. Y opposite of x, 90 degrees clockwise. So to use this, we really need to take note of the coordinates of the original point Q and P. So point Q is the point -4, 4. Okay, and point P is the point -3. Wait, that was wrong. This is -5, 4. Okay, and then point P is the point -3, 1. So Q prime, we're going to use the rule y opposite of x. The y value is 4. The opposite of x is +5. All right? Notice it is helpful to say opposite of x instead of negative x. If you say negative x, you're going to be tempted to put a -5 right here. If you say the opposite of x, you'll see that if the x value is already negative, the opposite will be positive. Now P prime, y opposite of x. The y value is 1. The opposite of x will be +3. Okay, so Q prime, 4, 5. So that's going to be 4, 5. And then P prime, 1, 3. All right, and that's it. We rotated 90 degrees clockwise. All right, number 7. Draw the image of segment PQ after reflected across the line y equals opposite of x. So we're going to start off the same as before. This is the same segment, so I'm just going to copy these. All right, but the rule is going to be that xy becomes opposite of y, opposite of x. And again, that's the importance of memorizing these rules. All right, reflecting over the line y equals -x. We've memorized that it will be opposite of y, opposite of x. All right, In fact, my recommendation to you is when you sit down to take a test or quiz on this topic, take out a sheet of scratch paper and write down all these rules before the test begins. And then you can just refer back to it for the duration of the assessment. Okay, so I'm going to use the rule to find Q prime. Opposite of y, opposite of x. The opposite of y will be -4. The opposite of x will be +5. P prime. Opposite of y, opposite of x. The opposite of y is -1. The opposite of x is +3. So now we graph them. -4, 5 would be right here, and -1, 3 would be right here. All right, so that is going to be Q prime and P prime. All right, now it would be helpful for you to know that the line y equals -x is a diagonal line that goes downhill right through the middle of the graph like this. This yellow line is the line y equals -x. So on this graph, let me show you what that would look like. All right, and the point of mentioning this, after we've already solved the problem, is a way of double checking your answer. If you know that the line y equals -x is this downward facing diagonal line, then you can glance back at your answer and make sure that they look like mirror images of each other across this line. And they do, so we're good. All right, let's move on to problem number 8. Okay, what transformation occurred in this picture? Okay, so this is just a multiple choice question. So notice that R and R prime, R became R prime, so this reflection happened. Well, I say reflection, but we haven't decided that yet, but this point became this point. I see S and S prime. So it just went like that. All right, so it seems clear that these points are mirror images of each other across the y-axis. All right, see how these are reflections of each other over this line? So it was reflected over the y-axis. So the answer is D. Okay, this one is a little bit more tricky. It is definitely not a reflection of any kind. All right. First of all, the way that they're slanting makes it difficult to be any kind of a reflection. But also, see how across from point R, you see S prime. And then R prime is across from S. So this is not just simply reflected, or it's not a translation, okay? Like this didn't just slide over, because this would be R prime, not S prime. Okay, so that means it's probably a rotation of some kind. And really, so only A is going to make sense. It has to be a rotation for this to end up being upside down like this. So out of these choices, a rotation of 180 degrees is the only thing that makes sense. That's why this is rotating around and turning upside down. So I already know the answer is going to be A. But let's check it on one more level. Let's pick one point to check our answer. So point R is the point 3, 2. Okay, so let's see what R prime would be if this really is rotated 180 degrees around the origin. We know that the rule for that is opposite of x, opposite of y. Okay, so 180 degrees, that's opposite of x, opposite of y. So if we use that rule, opposite of x, opposite of y. So R prime should be -3, -2. Oh look, -3, -2, that is R prime, so that means we did the right thing. All right, problem number 10. What transformation has occurred? Now, just at a glance, I can see that the mirror image here is right here. This is the mirror line. All right, so just visually you can see that these are the same, okay, directly across from each other over this diagonal line. And so this is the line y equals x. All right, a diagonal line that goes uphill is the line y equals x. So that means that this is a reflection over the line y equals x. All right, so the answer is C. Okay, that's it for number 10. Number 11. This point is reflected across the line y equals -x. What's k prime? Well, we're just going to use the rule, which says that any point xy is going to become the opposite of y, the opposite of x. All right, that's right off the list of rules that we memorize. Opposite of y, opposite of x. Okay, so the opposite of y is going to be +7. And the opposite of x is going to be -3. So that's it for that. This point is translated right 4 and up 1. Okay, right 4, so that means I'm going to add 4 to the x value. And up 1 means we have to add 1 to the y value. Okay, so that's going to make 8, (0). +1 plus -1 is 0. This point is rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise. Well, we know a rule for that. xy becomes opposite of y, x. All right? That is right off of the, oh man, it's not moving. That's right off of the list of rules that we had to memorize. 90 degrees counterclockwise, opposite of y, x. So let's just use the rule. So opposite of y will be -1. And then x is 8. Okay, number 14. We're reflecting across the x-axis. Let's use the rule. Okay, xy becomes, okay, x-axis, that was going to be x, opposite of y. Okay, that's right off the list that we memorized. All right, you see why it's so important to memorize these rules? So here we go. X is -4. And then the opposite of y. The opposite of y is +9. And that is the end of the quiz.